Entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and that's okay. Our lifestyle as an entrepreneur is very different compared to an employee, right? And there's nothing wrong with being one or the other. It's more of if you choose to try to be an entrepreneur, great, try it to see if it fits you, to check up, meet other entrepreneurs and see what their lifestyle is like. Kaya mo ba yan? Kaya mo in the beginning, you're the only employee, and meaning you are the CEO, but you are also the janitor.
What's up mga ka-Investa? Welcome to the 10th episode of the Investa Learn Business Talk. Now, I'm Renzo. I'm your host for this show and our guest is Georgianna Carlos. She is the CEO and co-founder of Fetch Naturals, which is a premium brand for high-quality pet care products that are so good and natural they're used for both humans and pets. She is also the co-owner of MyOffice Philippines, which helps people set up their virtual offices. She is also the CEO of Permittee, which helps people naman register their businesses legally here in the Philippines. And aside from that, she has been part of the Forbes 30 under 30 list noong 2019. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about her businesses. How did she build Fetch Naturals? How did she start her entrepreneurship journey? We're going to be talking about how she manages her time given na marami siyang businesses na kailangan i-handle all at once. Pag-usapan rin natin yung health pandemic and paano siya magpipivot towards the new normal. She's gonna be giving a lot of advice for those who would like to start their entrepreneurship journey and a lot more in this episode. So guys, I hope you will enjoy. Without further ado, let's move on to the episode. Alright, what's up mga ka-Investa? Welcome back to the Investa Learn Business Talk. And today our special guest is Georgianna Carlos. Hello, George.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being part of this show. Just to share no guys, when I emailed Miss George, nag-reply siya agad in a few minutes and she was G. So, sobrang thank you because malupit si Miss George when it comes to business. So, thank you.
Ano ba, don't call me Miss George, diba? I think
George.
same generation lang naman tayo.
Yes.
Sana.
Yeah, I think we are naman. Just to be respectful, ganon. So, I'd like to start with kind of an icebreaker question. So,
Okay.
let me start with, George, what happened in the past 3 days that you are most thankful for?
What happened the past
Yeah.
3 days? I finally had dinner with my kuya. My kuya kasi lives in New Manila, and syempre with what's happening, everyone's very cautious. And you don't really see friends or family. So my kuya came over, visited the house last night. So that was nice because you take these things for granted. You think you can see your brother or your friends all the time, but with what's happening, it's been months since I've seen him. So I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, that's good. How many siblings do you have, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure. I am number 4 out of 5.
Oh.
We're a big family. The first one lives in LA. He works in retail. The second lives here. He lives in New Manila. Number 3 works actually for, I don't know if you know the company called HelloSign, but it was acquired by Dropbox. She's one of the first employees of that company. I'm number 4, and number 5 is in college in the States as well.
All right. So before we dive in with Fetch or MyOffice, can we go through the roots muna? And George, what is your story? So how did everything start? What brought you into this entrepreneurial world that you are in now?
Oh my gosh. I think it's really a mix of parang experience and what I've been exposed to. So backstory, my parents are both entrepreneurs. They started their own businesses. My dad has a business in construction. And my mom actually started MyOffice in 2004. It was the very first Filipino-owned virtual office at that time in a world of Regis and ServCorp. So I was her forced employee during the summers. Ako yung receptionist, ako yung whatever. So it was a very traditional service office setup at that time. I'm actually a psychology major. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to set up my own school. After college, I worked for a school and I realized I'm a very bad teacher. Not for me at all. So, as in, like, I'm so sorry to the students. I hope I did not scar you for life or anything. I was not. I don't have the patience, or like it's a different world. It's to be a teacher, and it's very admirable for those who choose that as their vocation. So I left the school. I worked for a PR and events company, and then the accounts I handled for that PR and events company included PLDT, where they first started Idea Space. So around when the batch 1 or batch 2 was starting in Idea Space, I was working for that PR company. I was writing for their press releases. I was attending their summits, or we helped also put together the summits like PLDT Tech Island. I think that was a thing during 2015, something like
Mm-hmm.
that, 2014, 2015. So that was kind of like my first exposure on the startup world. I had to write about it. I had to pitch to the media what startup is. And that's kind of what opened my eyes on what that world is. So I think it was really a mix of exposure to my parents. And then suddenly I was brought into that world again because of my work in PR and events. So I left that. I joined MyOffice. I kind of helped take over and like kind of bring it back to the startup community, because by that time it was very more focused on service office, traditional service office. There was no way to offer that service to the startup community. And really that's how I started being an entrepreneur.
All right. So what were the first few things you did as part of my office? Since you have a lot of marketing and PR experience, what was the first few steps you did to kind of revamp the company?
Mhm. So what the first thing I did was really communicate how my office is not, because at that time co-working was so new, so it was like the trend. We stood out because our focus was our clients are mobile entrepreneurs who don't necessarily go to the office every day because they're always on the road, they're always on the go, and they don't necessarily want to pay for a desk or a room for the whole month, for a whole day. So we really focus on our mobile services. When I say mobile, that's the support. You can say virtual support. For
Mm-hmm.
example, call transfer, right? So you're on the road. We will represent you as your company. When we receive calls or inquiries or walk-ins, we represent you. And then we keep you updated, live updates like, hey, this person came in, this is what happened, things like that. So a lot of very front and back office support. Another is we were known as the virtual office that offers tingi services. So very Filipino. In fact, if you Google it, I think there's still newspaper articles about it.
Mm.
We don't offer set package like, oh, package A has this, package B has this. We're like, what do you need for the month, for the week, for the this na? You want to get rid of that one service. Okay, get rid of it. We'll focus on the other services. So you just pay for what you need. So that was really the first thing I did for my office and how I communicated it to the public, which I think was quite successful.
All right. So that's for my office, no? So how did you transition from that to Fetch Naturals?
So Fetch Naturals actually was going to be a bit in the beginning an e-commerce website for high-end pet care products or pet products in general na high-end. I grew up with dogs. I currently have 4 dogs. So I really wanted to enter that industry. And then I learned that setting up a marketplace is so hard.
Mm.
I hated it. Logistics, inventory, everything. So that was what Fetch was supposed to be around 2016, but we shelved that or I shelved that project because it was a nightmare. Anyway, and then so that's what happened. And then one of my dogs, I had a new dog around that time as well, who was allergic to all the products available in the market, both locally produced and produced outside. So we were back and forth to vet, my skin allergy siya, etc. And then my then boyfriend, now fiance, gave me a bottle of shampoo to try. He got it from Italy, which is so expensive. It was like 250 ml for like 600 pesos or something. But my dog reacted well. So I'm like, oh, that's so great. I turned the bottle to read the ingredients because I was thinking back we can help distribute this na lang. And one of the first ingredients is neem oil. I'm like, what is neem oil? I Google it. Neem is a tree that grows in tropical countries. like the Philippines. So parang 600 pesos for this small bottle where the ingredients are from here. So that's when I started doing my research. I found someone who, basically a chemist who makes natural products, and I said, hey, we want to team up? Let's make our own. We decided to use neem extract because most of the products in the market use neem oil. Neem extract is more water soluble. It's better for the environment, things like that. And then we came up with our first product line called the Neem Pet Care line, Fetch Neem Pet Care line. I actually have a bottle here to show you.
Oh.
So we came up with that. And then we expanded. We researched on other ingredients that are grown in the Philippines that we can use. So after the neem line, we made our jicama line. In Tagalog, it's called singkamas. So we made a singkamas shampoo. And yeah, ever since then, we've been just producing our own lines. Actually, the jicama or singkamas is the first in the world for pet care. We're the first one to create a shampoo out of that. And ever since then, we've been researching on other things that can be grown here and what we can create out of that. So Fetch was officially launched March 1, 2017.
Oh. And how is Fetch doing now? Or have you expanded globally?
So we did try our hand on Amazon USA. At the same time, my brother, as I mentioned, he's in retail in LA. Though right now, because of with what's happening as well, we're now focusing more back here in the Philippines and then hopefully in Asia, especially since the pet care industry in Asia is young, a lot more young compared to the one in the US right now.
Oh. All right. So how was the reception for the product naman in the US? How did people react to Fetch?
I mean, honestly, we did super market it when we were the products that's in the US. We did sell through Amazon, and I think it was pretty okay. The reviews are pretty good naman. It's just that there are a lot of products already available in the USA market. Their agriculture is quite strong in terms of like oatmeal and like other ingredients. Positive naman, but our reception in the Philippines is actually a lot stronger than the US, just because I think it's a novel product and the industry is quite young. And we're actually really first in the Philippines to have, for example, an FDA registration for our pet care products and the BAI registration. It's Bureau of Animal Industry. So I think it's really, as far as the Philippines is concerned, it's novel and it's at par with USA made products.
All right. All right. So of course, Fetch is one of the businesses you made that
Yes.
that eventually brought you into the Forbes 30 under 30 list.
Yes.
All right. So what was the process of becoming part of the 30 under 30 list for Forbes?
Okay, wait, I'm trying to remember. It's been a while. Um, so I was in the 2019 list. That was last year. They announced it April 2 of last year. But nominations for Asia, I think, started September or October. I can't really recall. I have this one friend who is like the biggest cheerleader. He's like, apply for it, apply for everything. And I'm like, you know who's been on the Forbes 30 list? It's Melanie Perkins of Canva, like these people who change the world. I sell dog shampoo. Like that's so crazy. But I guess, like it's nice to have cheerleaders in at least a one cheerleader in your life. And he was such a cheerleader. I think he nominated me. He claims he did not. Nominated me, sent me the link also. So I filled up my bio. That was around September, October. And then nothing happened. Like it was just dead silent until like, I think right before Christmas. Right before Christmas, I got an email from a staff writer from Forbes. Like, hey, we're checking on your nomination. We are one of those who made it to like the semi-final or something, or like shortlist. I don't know the term. And they asked me, can we interview you through email? And I'm like, sure. And the email interview was very detailed questions on Fetch, as in, is it true that this is the process? And they were really detailed on what they researched about Fetch. Is it true you're in these stores? Is it true you are this is like the process you use to make your shampoo? That's why it's unique compared to others. Is it true that you got your products from this farmer area, whatever? So it was
Mm-hmm.
very, very, very detailed. So I answered those questions. How much did you invest in the company? Did you ever take loans or investors? How much did you make in year one? How much did you make in year two? Like very, very specific financial questions. So I answered that, and then silence, nothing. Until April 2, I got an email around, I think, midnight, or something, and they're like, hey, congratulations. And there was a long email, like, you made their 30 list, you're under the retail and e-commerce category. Please save this date for our Asia Summit. And they sent the link of the list. And it was a crazy day because initially I even thought it was a prank because it was April 2, and April 1 was
Yeah.
was the day before. And that cheerleader friend I was telling about was like, you never know, baka you made it, because a no doesn't mean that, you didn't receive a no. So he's been like checking like Forbes every day. And I'm like, are you sure? Come on. But yeah, I was there, and that was a crazy day. I didn't work that day because I was just like chatting with people who were
Mm.
congratulating me and sharing it on social media. But yeah, that's basically how I got into Forbes.
All right. So, what were your expectations prior to that? Like being part of this prestigious list, 30 under 30, and what was it like after being part of that list? So, did things
So
change for you?
I mean, things change, not very drastic, because I think end of the day, whether you make it to any list or not, what matters when it comes to business is, do you actually work on your business, right? You actually find ways to keep it innovative, to keep it growing. So I feel like a lot of the changes that happen are still very because of the decisions we made as a company. But definitely there are some significant things that happened. For example, definitely the media mileage helped. So when the list came out, of course, it was in every newspaper and TV show, like they were announcing who made it on the list, which definitely helped connect us to other suppliers, other media persons as well. So because of that, we were featured in this German pet magazine. So we're
Mm.
constantly featured there as well. So at least we're starting to get media mileage in that part of the world. At the same time, it was also, I guess it was also easier to reach out to other suppliers and other traditional stores or retail groups, just because, hey, because they heard of us through
Mm-hmm.
Forbes. I guess also when it comes to my personal life, there has been groups who've reached out to me to like speak in events, right? Like this one. I
Mm-hmm.
was part of Wacol's campaign last year. So Wacol had a uplifting women campaign where I was for the entrepreneur sides. I was part of that last year as well. So those are the changes. I've been asked also to speak in the MAP, Management Association of the Philippines International CEO Conference. And I think what's great about that is when I was included in the list, it was also at the same time where there was more focus on the natural side of world, sustainability in business, things like that, and how to innovate your company to still be sustainable, while being practical in today's world. So I think that was a nice alignment as well.
All right. All right. So since we are here in the Forbes 30 under 30, after that you also have this business called Permittee. So can you tell
Yes.
us how does Permittee tie into all of your other businesses?
So with Fetch, clearly when we started, we had to do the registration ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was a process here in the Philippines, as you know. And at the same time, as your business grows, you realize, oh, you'll need other things as well, like IP, right? Intellectual property, for at least for retail, export and import licenses. For us, it was an export license, right? And at the same time, with MyOffice, since we cater to small businesses who use our space for their business address and their permits, who use our space to support their everyday functions, right? It was kind of like it tied in, and it made sense to help people register and to make it less hassle for them. So even though some things about the registration process has moved online, it can be confusing for people. And if it's not confusing for people, some people don't have time. Imagine you're trying to build a business and you're trying to figure out paperwork, is this the right document, things like that. So Permittee really came out of that. We wanted it to be hassle-free and ideally as online as possible. So if you sign up with Permittee, the rates are there, everything's transparent, and we just give you one kit, one Permittee kit. You just fill it out once, and kami na bahala for everything else. We'll take care of it. And the next time you see us, it's probably because we need your signature, or something was filled out wrong, or like we don't have the right information, or something else. But as much as possible, we take away the work from you when it comes to business registration. And it ties in with MyOffice very nicely.
All right. All right. So now that we know what you've been through, your businesses, it's pretty amazing how you can juggle all of these together. So
it's hard.
yeah, I can. So how do you do this? How do you balance things out, and how do you make time for all of these other things? And how do you give time to do podcasts like this with us?
Well, to answer your last question, podcasts with you. You guys are very understanding, adjusting to my schedule. So thank you for that. It's really scheduling that very well. And we have one Google Calendar so everyone knows
Mhm.
if someone has like a talk or someone has a meeting out, things like that. So everyone's aware. I'm very lucky we have a really, really good and good, efficient, lean team. Okay, so compared to, let's say, other companies, we're not that big. We're actually quite small, but everyone is very efficient. They know their roles. They do it quite well. At the same time, we are dependent on technology. So with MyOffice and with Permittee, we use a lot of software to take care and automate things, to keep things going. With Fetch as well for, let's say, inventory management, things like that. A lot of it is, we're working on automating it, not just, we started with an Excel sheet, but now we can afford to have a software to automate the inventory management, things like that. So technology and people, they go hand in hand to keep things running.
And do you ever feel overwhelmed with all of your businesses? And what do you
All the
do?
time. All the
Really?
time. I mean, it's a thing because I do get overwhelmed, but
Mm-hmm.
I choose to be overwhelmed with that. I
Mm-hmm.
chose to have those businesses. I chose to have that lifestyle. So since I chose it, there's an accountability when it comes to it, and sometimes it's a bad type of overwhelming that you're like, oh no, I need a break, and maybe you need to check, maybe we need to upgrade certain things, or maybe it's time to hire someone because we can afford it already, but my time is being wasted on this particular task or work, type of work. But yeah, end of the day, it's a type of overwhelming feeling that I chose and I kind of like, and it's kind of, and it's the fulfilling kind of overwhelming because you can see the progress. So for example, we just got out of ECQ, right? We're in GCQ now, right? Here in Metro Manila at least. And while it's been a struggle for all of us, this year has been tough for all of us, business, personal. It's also interesting to see that there are new businesses that were born during the quarantine period. And now they're using Permittee to register. And they're just focusing on building that business. We can set, the next day they're like, oh, we have a Facebook page already. I'm like, that's great. Well, we're fixing their papers, so at least they can focus on that. So it's also quite fulfilling. It's a type of industry you want to see grow, and you are part of that industry and the
Wow.
growth of that industry.
Okay, all right. So how do you keep focus when all of these are happening? What do you do any kind of meditation, or do you try to have long times of rest? What do you
I know. I really should do that. everyone's been telling me you should learn how to meditate. It helps.
do?
Everyone's been telling me, like my friends who are entrepreneurs also, they say meditation really helps. It's good for your memory. But I just cannot. I tried. I have the Headspace app. It's not working. um, but what I do, I am a night owl, so I do tend to work at night. I do try to work out, so that's my like no screen time. when I walk my dog and when I work out. Right now I've been working out at home only, so through like YouTube videos and stuff like that. So when you're done working out, you kind of tire your body, but kind of helps you refocus because you were not thinking about work at that time. During the weekends, I really try to make sure work doesn't take over the weekend. So my weekend is either a Netflix day, or I
Mm.
read books or listen to podcasts as well. So I try to keep at least the weekend, as much as possible work free. So your
Mm.
brain is refreshed. And by the time you get back to Monday, it's back to work and back to focusing on your businesses.
All right. All right. So talking about focus, do
Mm-hmm.
you have any, which one of those businesses you have do you intend to put more focus on or put more effort and energy in it?
Right now, Fetch is the needier baby, just
Mm.
because um, it is a lot more straightforward compared to other types of industries. It's retail, it's e-commerce, right? It's buy and sell. But at the same time, it's the type of company that you need to be innovative in creating new product lines, right? And innovative in trying to sell. For example, is it just if you just stick to, let's say, retail stores, if we chose to stick to retail stores even before COVID, when COVID happened, we would have been gone, right?
Mm.
We wouldn't have earned anything. But before COVID, we focused on not just retail stores, but we focused on building our own e-commerce website, which is why we were functioning during the quarantine period. We don't just sell pet shampoo, we also sell house cleaners, which are non-toxic to pets and children, but is DOST tested, sorry, and it has been proven to kill Salmonella, E. coli, and all those viruses. And because of that, we were considered unessential during the quarantine period
Mm.
because we create disinfectants, right? So it's a lot more busy when it comes to Fetch, because you really have to think of ways, or what is the next product line? What new produce that grows in the Philippines can we creatively make into a new type of shampoo or a new type of product, right? So yeah, definitely more focus on that compared to the others.
All right. And how about MyOffice? Since
Mm-hmm.
you've been doing e-commerce, you've been online selling, and also Permittee is done online, no? So
Mm-hmm.
with regards to the new normal, medyo wala namang problema with those businesses. Now, how
Yes.
about MyOffice? What are your plans to try to adjust to the new normal for that?
I think what's good with my office is, even though we do have a physical space, we do have meeting rooms and things like that, our focus was not on the physical space, even before COVID. Our focus was on how do we support mobile entrepreneurs? What services are those? And most of those services can be done through technology. So during when quarantine happened, of course, everyone was like shocked, like, oh no, did we prepare enough? But a lot of these services, as long as our staff are supplied with internet, the computers, and certain infrastructure, it can be done also through online. For example, if let's say you're a client from abroad, right, but you have clients but you have or you're a My Office member from abroad, but you have clients here in the Philippines. So calls are coming in, emails are coming in, things like that, and documents. We can do that, even though we're not in the physical office, because it can be done through the internet. Call transfers can be done also online, scan to email, things like that. We have a list of services that's really about supporting entrepreneurs. And honestly, even before COVID, 90% of our members, our My Office members, are working from home. So almost the same, but different.
All right, all right. So my next question naman is about
Yes,
entrepreneurship in general, and
sure.
how do you encourage people to be like you or to start their own business and to really go out and not be afraid of failing and trying something new?
I think when it comes to encouraging entrepreneurship, I always tell them two things. One is you shouldn't be afraid of failure. And I know it's a cliche, but people, especially when you get older, you're scared of failing. When you're a kid and you want to learn, let's say, how to do a cartwheel, you're not thinking of the possible pain when you fail to do a cartwheel, right? You're not scared of how stupid you look like because you're just doing a weird kick instead of a cartwheel. But as we get older, we become scared for some strange reason. So really go back to that, because end of the day, if you fail, maybe someone will notice it for the first 15 minutes and they'll forget about it after. So kind of retrain your brain. And two, entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and that's okay. Our lifestyles an entrepreneur is very different compared to an employee, right? And there's nothing wrong with being one or the other. It's more of, if you choose to try to be an entrepreneur, great, try it to see if it fits you, to check up, meet other entrepreneurs and see what their lifestyle is like. Kaya mo ba yan? Kaya mo in the beginning, you're the only employee, and meaning you are the CEO, but you are also the janitor, and there's nothing wrong with being either an or. But if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be all in the beginning. Kaya mo ba yan? Kaya mo ba yung first year mo if you have a family, can your family be supportive of that? Especially when it comes to income and you want to start doing that. And your first year really is you doing everything, you having late nights, you not being able to attend events. If you can handle that lifestyle, then go for it. I have I guess I try to be more realistic or practical when it comes to the approach, because some people, the lifestyle really isn't for them, and that's okay. But I think it's good to know before you try or enter, or at least have an idea.
All right. All right. So regarding the failures part naman, do you have any particular favorite failures in a sense that this kind of failure taught you a lot when it comes to business?
Oh my gosh, which one? But I guess we can start with how I told you that Fetch was supposed to be an e-commerce
Mm,
website. Technically, that's a failure because we built the website, we got suppliers for high-end products for pet care. And when I say high-end, like the one from the States where it's literally a small house inside your house just for your dog. Mga that level of high-end, okay? And the house where I live in was filled of boxes with those products, and the e-commerce site was up, but I didn't really do my research enough on if there's a big enough market to purchase all of these. Did some people buy? Yes, I had existing customers who bought that 10,000 peso cat scratch post thing, but do we have enough that it will be a sustainable business? And at that time, the answer was no. Right
mm,
now, maybe I haven't researched on at least that market, but I learned that just because you are willing to buy expensive things for your dog doesn't mean majority or there's a big enough population who would want to buy that. I also did research on the procedures or the system. I didn't create a system on, okay, if someone buys, what's next? How do I ship this giant piece of cat furniture to Cebu from Metro Manila? I didn't research on that and I didn't figure it out. So hindsight should have created a process. At least, processes can be tweaked, but having one to start before you start selling would have helped, definitely.
So more on knowledge muna or like research talaga before you go into something, no?
Yeah, like research on who's gonna buy, number one. And once they buy, how will you deliver the
Mm,
product? And especially since I was aiming for a high-end market, the process of delivering that item has to be within their expectations, diba? You can't just wrap it in plastic and then ship it in a boat, diba? It has to at least still come in a nice packaging.
mm.
Nothing bad will happen to it, things like that. So I did not think of those scenarios at all when I started. That was like 2015, I think.
All right. So with regards to learning naman, so of course experience is one of the biggest factors to our learning. But prior to all these experiences, where did you get most of your knowledge when it comes to how to do business, how to start a business, how to register this,
Mhm.
how to do that? So where did you get most of your learning from?
I mean, some of them, for example, how to register a business, you can just Google that. But then sometimes, even if you Google it, it's really through experience that you learn on how to do it. But most of my other, let's say, business wisdom that I've learned or I've gathered is really through people. Like you have to hang out with people who are better than you and who are actually business people. Like you see them not, like I have this there are so many types of business entrepreneurs out there, and I'm not really a fan of the entrepreneur, I'm so sorry, who is always speaking in events, which is kind of ironic. I'm speaking to you right now, but later on, and they're just fundraising and speaking, fundraising and speaking. But if you look behind the curtain, what's the substance of the business, right? I'm really a fan of businesses or business owners who, yes, they do all of those, but you can really see them thinking, how do I grow the company? How do I make myself profitable? How do I pivot at a time like this? Things like that. And especially companies that experiment, they are releasing a new product, whether it fails or not. They're finding ways to be innovative. And I really try to talk to all types of entrepreneurs, young people younger than me, those in tech, those in social enterprise, those in very traditional companies where you're like, wow, don't have Google Calendar yet, but somehow they're working. Why are they still working? And just kind of pick up from them. And it's so interesting because when you talk to different entrepreneurs from different industries, you think, what will the food industry do for fetch? But somehow you pick up something that you're like, you're right, I should try that with my company. And that's how I really learn.
So more on networking, no? And I noticed then one of the biggest things that I see from a lot of business figures, entrepreneurs, founders, is that you know each other, and you
Yes.
most of you are friends with each other. So, like for example, me, I'm kind of an
Mm-hmm.
introvert, so it's very difficult for me to go to an event and to like talk to this founder, talk to these people. So,
Mm-hmm.
do you have any advice on how do you market yourself well, or how do you talk to big shots, or those people that you can get a lot of
Oh my gosh.
inspiration from?
I know. When I started, I remember my first networking event. I think it was Raid the Fridge or something. Raid the Fridge by Kickstart.
Mm,
I don't remember, like years ago. I don't know. And then I was alone. I had no friend. And naman, as Filipinos, we need to have a friend with us and stuff like
yeah.
that. I grabbed a bottle of beer, just joined the table. Can I join your table? And then I just asked questions about their company. Like
Mm,
that's it. And it's really, I don't know if there's a tip on how to network. It's really just starting. That's what matters. Starting to talk to someone. And then eventually you'll connect. And most people in the startup community and most entrepreneurs are more than happy naman to talk about their business, to talk about the things that they've learned. So really, that's how I started when it comes to networking. I hope I answered your question when it comes to
yeah.
networking.
So more
Yeah.
on just guts, just do it and don't be shy. You have
Yeah, I
nothing to
mean,
lose.
people don't think it, but based on my MBTI, I am an introvert as
mm,
well. So it takes a lot of courage to start. Like before I go to network event, I kind of have to hype myself pa. Before
oh.
I go, I have to mentally prepare myself. But it's really more of just approaching someone. Hey, can you tell me more about what you do? Or hey, I heard you speak in this event. Can you tell me more about what you meant by this? And it's really just finding ways to start a conversation about their business or what you want to talk about. And sometimes it's as simple as, I have a beer from Raid the Fridge. I have no one to talk to. I go to the table. Can I join you? If they say, sorry, this table's full, okay, walk away, look for another table. But if they say, if there's space, they usually say yes. And you just sit. And then you just find a way to insert yourself in the conversation. So that's what at least I did when I started.
All right. So the technique is you need to have a bottle of
Beer.
beer with you.
A bottle of beer from Raid the Fridge. And no fear to just approach a table. But I guess the beer helps with the fear.
Who's the most inspiring business person you have come across with and you've been able to talk to?
Gosh, that is hard. There are a lot of inspiring entrepreneurs. Um, the most accessible one clearly is my mom, just because
Mm,
in 2004, co-working space did not exist. And the only options for business owners to have their own space is, one is to rent a space, or two, you go to a Regus or a Serve Corp, which did serve the purpose, but usually their clientele are like FedEx opening a branch in the Philippines. So there was none for the micro companies. And she's just like, well, why not start one? And it was
mm,
innovative for the Philippines at that time because no one was really seen sharing a space, like multiple micro enterprises sharing a space, using the address for business registration, things like that. So I say she kind of started the OG Philippine virtual office co-working space. And at the time, she started at the age of 40 plus. So you're a lot more fearless when you're young. You're more fearful when you're older. But she's like, I'm a 40 something years old woman. I have like X number of kids, but I must start a business. And I think that's very admirable, because a lot of people, when you're older, you're more, again, scared of failure.
All right. All right. So, of course, we want to be respectful of your time. So, we have a few more questions na
No
lang.
problem, no problem. It's always an honor naman. And, more than happy to help you guys invest. I've been a fan of Investagrams for quite a while naman.
Do you invest pala? Out of curiosity.
I did. And I actually did use, for example, when I was starting, so I was investing in the stock market, and there are terms. I'm a psych major. I know psych terms, but business economics, I don't know. I'm like, what is this term? And then when I Google, it's Investagrams with like a layman's explanation of what like mutual funds is or something like that. So yeah, definitely. I remember in my early days. Now, though, I have not been investing in the stock market, just because I have to prioritize my time, and my energy really is it's on the businesses. And for me to invest in the stock market, I do have to be more or less aware of what's happening, how it's going, things like that. And I can't. I'm one person, and I'm only human. I can only focus on so many things. But yeah, I did all the way until right before Fetch. I think right before Fetch, I was investing in the stock market.
Oh, all right. Interesting. So, you mentioned earlier that you like to read books.
Mm-hmm.
Tama ba? So, do you have
I try
any...
to. But
Oh.
I've been a lot more busy, but I do try to read books when I can. So I've discovered the beauty of audiobooks recently. So before, when I would be driving, things like that, I would just listen to an audiobook or a podcast. So that's how I go through books these days.
Do you have any book that you would recommend the most to anyone? It doesn't have to be business or anything that has a specific
Hmm.
field.
That is a good question. Let me open my app. I'm so
Sure.
sorry. I have an app of like one that keeps track of the books I want to read.
Mm.
So I'm sure you've heard of Goodreads, but I also have like a little shelf of like books that I tend to reread over and over and over again. I guess I can answer maybe both questions, both
Mm-hmm.
business and non-business,
Mm-hmm.
right? So for business, I guess if you're a starting entrepreneur, you can go with a classic, like The Art of the Start. That's such a
Mm.
classic. It's very easy to read. And what I like about it, it kind of explains the startup world also. Like it gives you definitions, because some people, when they enter the startup world, they like hear a term, especially like me, I'm not a business major. They're like, what is that? So it's very straightforward, very easy to read. So Art of the Start, The Art of War is quite classic also. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't intended to be a business book, but a lot of people end up reading it. Another is, I don't know if it's called a book. It's like half book, half magazine. But have you heard of B Magazine or Magazine B?
No.
Okay,
What is that?
so Magazine B, I learned it from Carlo Delantar, who is also part of the Forbes list. The format is like a magazine, so it's the same type of glossy paper, lots of feature articles. But one issue of Magazine B is an in-depth look at the branding of a company. For example, Airbnb, right? So that one book, it sounds like a magazine, but it's an in-depth look on the branding behind Airbnb, why this color, interviews on customers on why they chose Airbnb, interviews on the staff or those who worked in Airbnb, for example, right? And they would even interview, let's say, those who started like small companies that's a close competitor of that brand. So I really like it. It's very easy to read. One sitting, you're done. but it gives you a glimpse on the branding and the voice of a certain company. So that's pretty good.
So Art of the Start, the B
Uh-huh.
magazine, and the
Yes.
Art of War for the non-business one.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Hmm.
All
That
right.
sounds pretty good.
All right. So this is actually the last question. So given that we are in
Okay.
a all right. All right. So that
Hmm.
given that we are in a health pandemic and we're going through trying times, what is your message for the world?
Oh my God. I feel like that's such a big question. I am unprepared. So to make sure I understood your question correctly, because of what we're going through, what is my
Mhm.
message for the world in
Yes,
general?
in general.
Okay. I guess my message for the world is don't be too hard on yourself, on especially with what's happening this year. Someone told me, businesses, personal life, like I'm supposed to get married in like a week and a half, but clearly that's not going to happen
Mm,
because of with what's happening. So it's really a lot of disappointments this year. So with all those disappointments, don't be too hard on yourself that you're not getting online certificates or you're not learning how to bake bread or things that are going online. Honestly, as long as you survive this year, not just physically but even like emotionally and like things like that, that's already the biggest win, and to be grateful for that. So if Fetch, all my companies, even if it's not hitting the targets this year, but we're okay and my family's okay, like that is more than just a win. That's pretty good already. So yeah, don't be too hard on yourself, and be thankful that as long as you're here by the end of the year, that's great.
all right. Thank you so much, George, for
Thank
being
you.
part of this show. Sobrang daming golden nuggets and wisdom from you. And I'm sure maraming natutunan yung audience natin. So before we end, do you
Yes.
have anything you want to share? Do you want our audience to check out your website, or where can people contact you and reach you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can start with the company. So my office, which is a virtual office, you can go to our website at myoffice.com.ph. My Office Philippines is for our social media tags or handles. For Permittee, it's permittee.ph, and then just Permittee on social media. And then for Fetch, it's fetchnaturals.com. And then same thing also for the social media tags. So our social media handles. If you need to reach me, whether it's the business or me myself, like personally, feel free to just use any of those social media handles or accounts, or you can just email me at georgiecarlos.com at gmail.com.
All right, that's it for this
Yes.
show. Thank you so much, George.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Alright, so that's it for this episode, guys. Maraming salamat for tuning in. Sana marami kayong value na nakuha and sana nag-enjoy kayo from this episode. If meron kayong suggestions, comments, feedback, if you want me to ask a specific question in the future, or if you want a certain person to be in this podcast, please let me know in the comments below. So if you liked it, if may natutunan kayo, please share it with your friends, share it to those who you think are interested with business, those who want to start their own business. And if you want to learn how to invest in the stock market, go to investalearn.com. That's it mga ka-investa. Paalam.